syntax of the both functions. You should be able to explain the arguments required by each function. You should be able to calculate the totals using the sum function. You should be able to calculate the averages using the average function, and you should be able to apply both functions to real life data sets. What is the sum function? So the sum function is a mathematical function, and it is used to add numbers together. So instead of you adding up numbers one by one, Excel calculates the total automatically using this sum function. So Excel can easily calculate the total automatically using the sum function. So for example, instead of writing equals to cell A1 plus A2 plus A3 plus A4 plus A5, you can simply write equals to sum A1 to A5. Both produce the same result. So the sum function is simply faster and easier. Why do we use sum? Imagine a teacher calculating the scores of 200 students manually. That would take time, it would increase mistakes, it would be stressful, and the sum function calculates the total instantly. So instead of you having to do it manually when you are doing for large numbers, it becomes very tasky. So this is why you make use of the sum functions. Now, businesses also use sum to calculate sales, expenses, salary, profits, and stock quantities. Yes. So for businesses, you can use your sum function to calculate your sales. You can use to calculate expenses. You can use to calculate salary. You can use to calculate profits, and you can use it to calculate stock quantities. So let's look at the syntax of the sum function. So the syntax of the sum function is given as this. We have equals to sum in brackets number 1, then number 2, and dot dot dot. So now trying to understand it, this equal to is what must always start every function. Why the sum is the function name. Sum is the function name. Then number 1 means the first number or range to add. So you must add the first number or range, and that is required. And number 2 is the additional numbers or range, which is optional. So if you added only just the first number or the range or the first range, sum will still work. It will still work. It will still add. It will still work on that particular information that you input. Then the last part is the dot dot dot. What the dot 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 means is that what the 3 dots means is that you can continue adding as many numbers as and or ranges as you want. So provided that maybe what you want to add is like 10 numbers, you can eventually put all the 10 numbers inside the arguments of the sum function. That means the sum function can take as many arguments as possible. So examples of the sum function: if column A has data 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 starting from cell A1. So we have cell A1 to A5 as 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. You now use the sum function. So the formula equals to sum A1 to A5 will return what? 150, which is the addition of all the data. 10 plus 20 plus 30 plus 40 plus 50 gives us 150. Now, when you have equals to sum 20, 50, 100 in the argument, and you tell the Excel function to return it, it will return 170. When you have sum A1, B2, C5 separated with a comma, Excel will do what? It will add the individual value in those cells. So what are the common mistakes that you can encounter when using sum? You might forget the equals to sign. That's a mistake you should not do. You might type the wrong cell range. That's a mistake you should not commit. And you can including empty or incorrect cells. Yes, that will not help your addition or your usage of the sum function. Now let's look at the average function. The average function calculates the mean of a group of numbers. Average means total of all values divided by number of values. Total of all values divided by number of values. So Excel performs this calculation automatically using the average function. So the way Excel performs this calculation automatically is by what? By using the average function. Why do we use the average function? Or let me say, what's the importance of the average function? Why is it being used? So let's see. School uses average to calculate students' performance class averages. So if you want to know the best performing student we want to know like maybe the average, the mean performance of students, we can use the average to calculate that. So for businesses, it can be used to calculate average monthly sales, average expenses, average customer rating. So we want to know what the average of that is, we can use the average function. In hospitals, it can be used to calculate average patient statistics. Then average helps us to understand the typical value in a data set. So it's just like saying bringing the set into a and the average value. So we are trying to look for the mean. That's just it. We have a data set and we are trying to look for the mean. We can make use of the average function. Average function syntax. The syntax of the average function is given below as follows. It's just like that of the sum function too. Just like that of the sum function. So average is the function name. The number one is the first number or range which is required, and number two is the additional values which is optional. Then the three dots means that more values can be added. So just like sum functions, average can also take many arguments. Now notice that the syntax is very similar to the sum function. The syntax of the average function is very similar to the sum function. So if we have column A with data set 70, 80, 90, 60, 100 starting from cell A1, the formula equals to average A1 to A5 will return what? 80. How do we come about the 80? That's the addition of all of these numbers. The addition of all of these numbers, which is about 400 divided by 5, and that gives us what? 80. So that is what average does. So another example would be average of 50, 60, 70. And what does that do? 50 plus 60 plus 70, that is 180 divided by 3, and it will return what? 60. So that is what average does basically. Now, let's look at the sum versus the average. Sum adds numbers together while average calculates the mean. So sum have to add numbers together while average calculates the mean of the numbers. Sum is used for totals while average is used for analysis. Sum is used for totals while average is used for analysis. So giving score as 50, 60 and 70, sum will return 180 while average will return 60. So given that the scores are 50, 60 and 70, sum will return 180 while average will return 60. So when you are using sum and average function, always start with equal to sign. Check your cell reference carefully. Use ranges wherever possible. Ensure your data contain numbers and verify your results before submitting your work. This is very useful.
Same data sets that we are having here now. If you want to perform the sum function, once you just enter sum, you pick the function, then you pick your cell range. So let's assume you want to sum these three values together. Then you enter, you have your value, which is your sum value. Now if you are looking for average, you just use equals to average. So you can enter it in any cell depending on where you want your value, your solution to be. So if you look at it now, this data now is starting from number 2. The number 1 are heading, so the second row is where it's starting from, and it goes to row 151. So now let's assume I want to total this part. Now we know that this part is what? The attendance. This one is assignment score, test score, exam score, and total score. So let's assume I want to total this attendance. Okay, I don't need to total the attendance. Let me just say I want to total my assignment score. That will be equals to sum. So now, because I know that it starts from 2 and ends on 151, I can just say this is G2 to G151, and then I enter. So now I have this, which is 2247. Now because if I want to sum this next one, which is the test score, it takes the same thing. It is still the same formula, so I can just fill it. If I fill it, the formula copies here, the formula copies here, the formula copies here, and then it returns this sum for each of them. Now if I can copy the formula down to this place, sorry. Okay, so I can copy the formula this way. So I have my total attendance too. So this is my total. So I can call, let's call this sum. So this is the value for the sum function. Now if it is the average function we want to look at, average, this will be equals to average of f2 to f151. So we enter it. So this is the average of each of them. So if we want to confirm whether we are correct, we can see that by saying, average is equals to sum divided by the count, that's the number. So divided by 150, we have 150 data sets there. So this is it, 78 points this. So we can see that the formula is actually correct. So this is how to make use of your sum and average function on Microsoft Excel.